delighted to be here, and thank you very much for wanting to hear what I have to say. When I defeated Donna Shalala, I'm very proud of that. She was one of the bastions of the Democratic Party. I was in a D+6. I'm sure that everyone understands what that means. Everyone said the prompter reader has, because you know that's the way they called me. She has no chance. What do you mean against Donna? Donna is the president of the University of Miami. She was the president of the Clinton Foundation. She was the longest serving member of the Clinton administration for 8 years. You know, she is highly respected. She's friends with Nancy, with Hillary, and with Bill. And 3 of them came to District Number 27 to campaign for Donna. You know, Donna didn't campaign because, you know, the prompter reader was not going to be able to really make it, and I did. And why did I do that? Because I explained to my constituents the Dignity Act, which is the law that we just wrote with John Mark and with Tom, and that we hope that the country will embrace. That's why I think it's so important. What's the Dignity Act? The Dignity Act tries to tackle the most important topic that it's facing that the country is facing: immigration. Immigration is a toxic topic, unfortunately, in politics, but it's one of the most important issues that we have to deal with. And I was listening to an interview this morning, and the guy who was a member of the Border Patrol was saying, yeah, it's just that Congress needs to act. Hang on a second. I was thinking, I'm Congress. So I'm trying to act. So I certainly hope that the rest of my fellow Congresspeople act with me. And what does that mean? That we have to write legislation, and we have to write a piece of paper that says what are the rules of immigration. Unfortunately, immigration is in the hands of the executive. In this, you know that it's in the hands of President Biden at this hour. I don't think that they have done a very good job when it comes to the border, but that's just one of the aspects of immigration. So I'm going to explain to you what the Dignity Act says, and I'm not sure if that's the format that we usually use in this type of activities, but I like the dialogues, not monologues necessarily. So I'm just going to explain the way I see it. If I have a magic wand, what we would do. So number one, we would secure or seal the border, because any country that respects itself needs to have controlled entrance, who comes in and who comes out. So let's seal the border with technology. Oh, well, what's the word? Well, the word is what Border Patrol decides. If Border Patrol, out of the 2,000-mile border that we have with Mexico, with the country of Mexico, if we need to do, let's say, a levee, or we put a tower, or we have to put a drone, or we have to put a structure, we have to put whatever it is. I'm not an expert, neither do I want to be, but I know 2 things: that we have the money, and the marketplace has produced the instruments, the technology, in order to secure the border. Period. Secure the border, first and foremost. Second, end catch and release. I'm not sure if you know that, unfortunately, everyone who wants to come to this country and doesn't have a visa, or has or cannot apply to a legal visa because it doesn't meet the requirements, then claims asylum. You guys know that, right? Anyone? I'm going to claim asylum, and the threshold, or the credible fear, which is what you have to prove in the first encounter with an American Border Patrol, most people cross it or meet it. And then they go into the country and they get lost. That's why we have so many illegals, because people claim asylum and I'll see you later. I'm going to Nebraska, and you won't see them again. So we're going to end that. And how are we going to end it? Oh, it's in a very humanitarian way. We're going to create 5 processing centers, if you want to call them. I call them humanitarian campuses. Humanitarian campuses. Oh, Mr. Pepe, please come in. Sure. We're going to give you in 100, right, John Mark? In 60 days. 60 days, we're going to determine, Pepe and your family, if you have enough basis to receive asylum in the United States. And we're going to treat you well, and we're going to feed you 3 times, and we're going to give you mental health, and we're going to give you every single health issues that you have, and you're going to be able to rest. And then we're going to determine if Pepe can come into the United States. 60 days. You're not going anywhere. You're staying in the humanitarian campuses. And if Pepe or whomever, Mohammed, you cannot meet the requirements, then you have to go back home, because that's what the laws in this country say. So end, catch, and release. Number 3, then everyone will need to, everyone in the marketplace, every business needs to establish E-Verify. That means that, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with E-Verify, is that you have to go to the government, to the computer, or to a computer or a database provided by the government, and you have to verify that that person and that Social Security really belongs to him. That is not, that they're not gaming the system, and that it's an illegal or undocumented who is using someone else's identity. So E-Verify. So we are not hiring anyone who is not legally in the United States. Number 4, this is not going to cost 1 penny to the taxpayers. We are going to fund it. No money from the taxpayers, because we're going to impose two types of taxes that I will explain to you where the money is coming from. But believe me, zero from your pockets. We hear, or there's great concern in my conference and among the Democrats as well, that if we, which is what happened to Ronald Reagan in '86, that he gave the path to those who were undocumented. He gave them the opportunity to become Americans, but the border security never happened. So now they're jaded, and I have told them that my bill says that there will be no path to citizenship or no legality until the GAO, which is a nonpartisan organization within, I mean, it's respected, right, by everyone, determines that the border has been secured for 1 year. Okay? So then comes the dignity status, which is where the word comes from. I believe that we are a good nation, a generous nation, and that we have been highly benefited by immigrants coming, 200 years ago, 100 years ago. We all know that your parents or your grandparents or third generation was from Norway or from England or from Germany. Okay. So why do I call it dignity? Because we have a class of people, most of them Hispanics, let's say 10, 12, 13 million illegals, people that live in the shadows. I'm not sure if you realize that, people that have no rights, that live in permanent anxiety. And how do I know them? Because I was one of the founders of Spanish television, meaning Univision and Telemundo, and those were my viewers. So those are the people that do the job that other people are not willing to do. The ones that they're picking jalapeno peppers in Southern California, or they are in the slaughterhouses in Iowa, or they are cleaning the toilets in Manhattan, or peeling the potatoes somewhere in New York City. Those people, I believe, that deserve to live a dignified life. I am not saying that they have to become American citizens. I'm saying that we can give them the dignity status, like any other status, which is the one that we're creating in this piece of legislation. And you are going to, let's say, I'm going to use Rosa. Rosa has been, let's give an example. Rosa has lived in Chicago for the last 17 years illegally, but she works in a main hotel chain, and she cleans the toilets, and she's one of the maids. No one sees her because she doesn't speak English, but she is there, and she works 12 hours a day, and she's been doing that for the last 10. And she cannot have a bank account, and she cannot buy a home, she cannot pay taxes. Maybe she bought a car, and she has maybe 2 American children. So what would I do with Rosa? I would bring her out of the shadows and say, Rosa, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you the dignity status for 7 years. You cannot have a criminal record. Obviously, you need to have been here for more than 5 years, no criminal record, paying some taxes, being a good member of society. So what we're going to do with you is that we are not going to give you any type of possibility of claiming any government programs. No government programs. You are going to buy your own health insurance, and we're going to give you the dignity status for 7 years. Each year, you're going to pay $700 and some, and it's going to be an amount of $5,000. That's one of the pockets of money. $5,000, you multiply that by 10 million, by 11 million, by 12 million. We're talking about what, $45 billion, right? That's one pocket. $45 billion coming from the undocumented. I am sure that they are going to be delighted. I know they're going to be delighted. I don't want any Democrats or Republicans telling me, well, but maybe nothing. She will go, where do I sign? Because that means that she will come out of the shadows and she will be a dignified member of this society. Not necessarily American, but she is happy to continue being Honduran. And she will live, I have the dignity act. I have the dignity status. I have dignity in my life. I don't have to look down or live in the shadows anymore. That happens with Rosa. That happens with the millions of people who are on the fields. And because of that, we have food on our table. If we were to disappear the illegals and the undocumented, because tomorrow they will get deported, we will not eat by Friday. But that's the problem, that no one understands the dynamics. The inflation will go up through the roof. There will be no construction. And probably the hotel room where you're going now will cost you 3 times because the owner of the hotel chain cannot find someone to change the sheets because the maid left. You see, it's a very big ecosystem that I'm trying to solve with the word dignity. Then after 7 years, if Rosa and Pepe, that was also here, let's say 15 years, all these are examples that I have met, that I have spoken with, because since I represent District Number 27 in Miami, there are 500,000 illegals in South Florida. And since I speak Spanish, because, I paid my rent by doing that, I talk to them all the time and I interview them and I extract all this information. They want to live a dignified life in the promised land because we are the promised land. But they don't necessarily want to be Americans. I mean, what's one thing has nothing to do with the other, right? So then after that, if after 7 years you behaved well, you paid your taxes, you were able to go home for Christmas or bury your mom and take your American kids to see your family, and you bought a home and opened a bank account and consumed a lot more because now you're making more money and you're paying your taxes and you have your dignity status, right? And you say, well, I would like to become an American citizen. So then you go into the redemption path. So there are 2 paths, the dignity status and the redemption status. And why did I do that? Because I don't want anyone to say that I'm creating a class of second-class citizens. That's what my friends on the other side would say, no, because, path. Path is a myth. It's dignity. Living out of the shadows. So then, all right, I'll give you the redemption. And for 5 years, so it's 7 first, and then it's 5. So we're talking about that after 5 years, then you go into the redemption. You pay another $1,000 a year, right, John Mark? Another $1,000 a year for 5 years. You fill out more papers. You have to learn some English. You have to do some civic work. And then you go to the back of the line of your country. So it may be another 5 plus another 2, right? And then another 5 plus another 3. And it could be another 15 years before you have the voting card or the passport, the blue passport in your hand. And you know how many people would care or would be sad about that? No one. because they will be very happy because they have the dignity status or their redemption. In 1986, Ronald Reagan was the last president in this country who gave path, status, legality, whatever you want to call it, to the illegals, to the undocumented. 3 million Mexicans at that time was the number that was supposed to benefit from this position by the president. You know how many people decided to become Americans like all of you are? You know how many Mexicans really decided, yeah, I really want to be gringo? You know, 70% did not. 70% of those 3 million people decided, no, I don't want to continue being Mexican. I have a good status in the United States. So based on those numbers and based on my experience, that's why I think the dignity status is the best immigration law that has been presented in the history of Congress. That's why I thank my staff. John Marks, I always say he's a real hero because he was the one who helped me write it and perfect it and refine it and refine it. We went to all the different other provisions, right? All the different other provisions that had passed in previous Congresses. And we put them all together, and I tell him that we made a smoothie. You know, we put it in the blender, we made a smoothie, and we made the dignity. So no one will say, oh, that's new. That's new. Oh, no. I say that passed already, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Nothing is new. It's just being the nation that we are, the United States, the beacon of hope. Continue being that nation full of good people, generous. Who's more generous than we are? Look at Ukraine. Who's more generous than we are? Look at the Cubans. That's my group. I would not be able to be here standing in front of you and being a member of Congress if this country would have not opened up their arms and say to the Cubans, okay, you got the bad luck of getting a guy by the name of Fidel Castro, but please come, live a dignified life in the United States. And that's why I'm doing it. I'm only paying back to the country. After 35 years of journalism, after so many interviews, I thought I was going to retire. You know, I've done enough. But I do think that if I could do this, because I know the topic so well and I can defend it better than anybody because I lived it, it's my duty as an American citizen, first generation Cuban American, to owe it to the country and give the country back what they gave, specifically my group, the Cubans. So that's my position. If any questions, I would love to entertain. Yes, please.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for sharing all the details of the bill. That's a very impressive assortment of ideas. One of the things the Ripon Society kind of prides itself on is finding solutions that can actually make better lives for people. And we realize, I think most of us in the room realize, that often that is done with bipartisanship. And I know that your co-sponsor is a member of the Democratic leadership. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the politics about how you hope to advance the bill.
Thank you for that question. Very important. Of course, we will not be able to pass the Dignity Act through the House of Representatives if we don't have bipartisan support. And I have a fantastic co-sponsor. Her name is Veronica Escobar. She is a Democrat on the progressive side. Could you imagine? I am a Republican on the conservative side. And she is a Democrat on the progressives. And she is the best there is, because she understands everything that I'm telling you, that we have to seal the border, that we have to end catch and release, that we cannot have these people come in illegally, that we need to give dignity to the ones who are here, that we need to put order at the border, and that we have to create new laws for those and expand, which I didn't get into the legal side. We're also fixing the legal side, providing more different types of visas for people to come in if they are needed in the marketplace. Simple. So she understands that, because this has nothing to do with political parties. This has to do with common sense, which is the least common of all senses. So we're trying to explain to both conferences, the Dems and the Republicans, that this is a good idea, and she's all in, full heart into this. So I am very grateful to Veronica Escobar, who she's become my friend, because we're here to do things. We're not here to do anything else, or to wear the pin, or to look important. Oh my God, I'm a congresswoman. No, you're a congresswoman, do something with it. And she is on that same page.
Maria, you have absolutely enlightened all of us with your legislation and your passion for this. And we all know we've got to get something done. And what are the biggest obstacles that you are finding even within the conference? Is it the lack of the knowledge of the Dignity Act, or is it just because they really don't want to go in that direction because of problems from home saying, we just need to seal the border off, period?
All of them. But I would say that the number one issue is lack of knowledge and fear of being accused that this is amnesty. Amnesty is what the undocumented have right now. Amnesty is free roads, free schools, and free hospitals. For 35 years, ever since Ronald Reagan did that for the last program, immigrants, undocumented, have lived in amnesty. Yes, this ends amnesty because I forced them to pay for their ride with a $5,000 in 7 years, with having to buy your own health insurance, with no chance of claiming any government programs. And that's fine because they're working. And they're working and no one can steal that salary, and they can buy a home and they can invest and they can go home for Christmas and they can create another shop. So they'll be fine because they know the undocumented understands that they snuck in and that they're not supposed to be here because no one invited them. But at the same time, they also know that someone gave them a job. And that someone who gave them a job is an American, speaks perfect English, is probably a tycoon in either in construction, hospitality, or in any of those other industries that are benefiting from that labor. So there are no saints here. There are no saints. Those who snuck in and those who invited them to stay. Because I assure you that if you cross the river and you do the trek and you get to, I don't know, let's say Miami, and no one gives you a job for 4 months, you have only one way out. Go back home. But the thing is that you get here and 12 hours after, you are working. You see, so it's like, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And that's what I'm saying to my friends. I understand, but this is not amnesty. This is going to be dignity. Everyone is going to pay for their ride. No one is going to have free lunch, and no one is going to be able to abuse the government programs that are for those who are United States citizens. That's the way I see it.
And with your enthusiasm and your go-gettedness, I know it's going to get done. We look forward to having you back for your victory lap.
And I ask all of you to help me in whatever way you can, in whatever industry you're in. If you can call your representative, call them and say, hey, I just heard Maria. Jesus, I like the dignity. And if you are in the business sector, I cannot do this alone. I have done the possible. Now God and all of you will do the impossible, which is to get it passed. Thank you.
Maria Salazar, thank you very much. Thank you all very much for